cemetery ministry engagement and correspondence.
Good afternoon, Bishop. We've come to report or give you an update regarding the Mount Zion Cemetery located in Baltimore County. In May of 2022, the SED office received multiple phone calls regarding a cemetery that was reportedly owned by the Baltimore Conference MEE.
Maybe I have to ask the technicians to try to help us to see what's wrong with these mics on this side.
Is this better? Yeah. Amen. The bishop's office received multiple phone calls regarding a cemetery that was said to be owned by the Baltimore Conference African ME Church. Public records from the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation listed the Baltimore Conference African ME Church as the owner. In addition, we were provided with a copy of a handwritten deed by the Maryland Office of Cemetery Oversight. No documents or information was provided or found in the 2nd Episcopal District to substantiate or disprove our ownership. Based on this information, we, the 2nd Episcopal District and the Baltimore Annual Conference, took the necessary steps to clean up and begin to maintain the cemetery. The costliest work was the seasonal grass cutting during the summers of 2022 and 2023. The grass was cut 22 times at a cost of $2,500 per cut. Parts of the monuments for Bishop Payne and Bishop Wayman are in Mount Zion Cemetery. The monuments were formerly in Laurel Cemetery, which was leveled and is now the home of Bel Air Edison Crossing Shopping Center. In May of 2023, the Baltimore Annual Conference and Harrows Incorporated was sued for $100,000 by a gentleman claiming to have fallen in an open grave in 2020, 2 years before the 2nd Episcopal District was contacted regarding the cemetery. In August of 2023, a title search was completed by Pender Hughes Title Incorporated, and it was determined, based on the results of the title search, that Mount Zion Cemetery is not owned by the Baltimore Annual Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The title search found that Frank D. Wynn and the Mount Zion Cemetery Company of Baltimore City are the owners of the cemetery and have been since 1903. As a result of this finding, our attorney filed a motion for summary judgment asking that the Baltimore Annual Conference be dropped from the pending litigation. On January 29th, the judge hearing our case ordered that the Baltimore Annual Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Inc.'s motion be granted. I'm quoting directly. This judgment finally disposes of all claims against the Baltimore Annual Conference of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Inc. only. All claims remain against the defendant Harrows. Our attorney advised us to disconnect ourselves from the Mount Zion Cemetery and has contacted the appropriate agencies requesting that the record be corrected. As a result of the work that the Petrol Care Ministry has done for the past year and a half, the Mount Zion Cemetery is in better shape than we found it. Although the Baltimore Annual Conference is not the owner of the cemetery, we played an important role in the preservation of all documents, which are now housed with the Maryland State Archives. Bishop Davis, we thank you for the opportunity to serve and to correct this. I want to say to the district, one of the issues that the bishop had to deal with was not having all the appropriate documentation. No one provided any information regarding the ownership of the cemetery within our district. We then searched the records regarding Bishop Hemingway. Bishop Hemingway was listed as the contact on a document that the Maryland State Department of Taxation had, but we could find no documentation anywhere indicating that we owned the cemetery, other than the one document that I referenced from the State Department of Taxation. Again, as a result of that, the litigation is over. The judge accepted all of our documentation, and we believe that we're on the road to recovery. I want to say to the Second Episcopal District, because Bishop Payne and Bishop Wayman's monuments, parts of their monuments are still in the cemetery, I don't believe we should totally walk away as a good citizen and members of the community. I believe down the road that we should take efforts to have those monuments possibly moved to one of our church cemeteries for longer preservation. Thank you, Bishop Davis.
Before Reverend Burns and committee leads from there and others who helped in this process, I think we just need to emphasize the fact that he made a recommendation, and I think before we vote on the recommendation, because I think it's a reasonable one, I know the ooh about the more than $50,000 that was paid in for cutting the grass, and some of y'all act like that's the first time y'all heard that, you know. I mean, really, y'all, I've been telling y'all about that grass cutting piece for a whole year. I even told you that we couldn't put all of that on the Baltimore annual conference, because if the expenses of this matter had to be rested on or rest on the Baltimore annual conference alone, it would bankrupt them. And you remember, you voted at every annual conference. I carried it to every single annual conference, and they didn't applaud the conference record that you would help and the amount that you would help with in order to keep this from being a matter that the Baltimore annual conference would have to take by itself. I did not break it off from the annual conference treasuries as of yet. But as I told the presiding elders in their meeting earlier this week, it will be broken off at this annual conference and paid back, because not only was there the $55,000 involved in this upkeep, he hasn't told you about the insurance money that we spent, and on top of the insurance money, the blocks to try to keep the people out of there and stop the hemorrhaging, and not only that, but then the fence repair and the this and the that, and if you need something else that's going to make you go ooh and ah, the legal fees that we paid just to stay afloat and try to mitigate that which was being put in the newspaper about us. That's how this whole thing got started. The news article that went out about AME Church and its lack of care for the community. So every annual conference is going to break off a piece at this annual conference. Somebody say amen. And everybody, every annual conference is going to break off a piece in order to pay this money back, so it won't be a burden to any of us. I think two things that were brought out in this presentation that you need to remember. One, we really should not just depend on oral history. It must be recorded. You know, when we started last quadrennium, combining the minutes from annual conferences for the 4-year period, I thought everybody would just eat those up, and I ended up eating the cost of getting most of them printed, because the real truth of the matter is oral history has a way of revisioning itself. The preacher talked about it this morning. You know, we remember what we want to remember, and it messes us up. We were potentially in liability for one lawsuit of $100,000, and you well know the minute one person gets $100,000, those other persons who say they paid money to And he didn't tell you about that. All the folk who say they bought lots out there and now they want their money back for the lots, that has the potential of turning into a lawsuit too for somebody. For somebody. And so I'm hoping that we will respect the idea of making sure that everything we say and do in the annual conference is written and adopted in the conference, because that's how this whole thing got started. The recommendation is that we be supportive in the community, because now that we have made that effort, even though we don't own it, it is still in the Black community, that we do our part in encouraging the care of it and giving leadership to that. And I don't mean to the tune of cutting the grass every 2 times a month. I mean to find out, once this whole legal thing is settled, to let whoever it is know that we are a part of the Black community, so that we can get our names out of the newspaper as big persons that don't care. That was the first recommendation.
That is correct. Yes.
That's the first recommendation.
I so move the recommendation, Bishop. Second.
And what the motion is that this recommendation of this body gets passed every annual conference, and particularly the Baltimore annual conference, and for the care. It's been probably moved and seconded. I didn't see who it was. Stan, would you please, unless it's been moved by Reverend Hayward, seconded by Reverend Weaver. You've heard the motion, ready for the question. All in favor, let me know by aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and so ordered. The second recommendation was that Bishop Wayman's marker and Bishop Payne's marker, that we've been saying they were buried there, now we know differently. They're not buried there. They're not. But their tombstones are there. And what the recommendation is, that the committee studies the best place of our settings to put the markers in those cemeteries that are ours.
So moved, Bishop.
Second.
And that, who was the second?
Second.
All right, somebody. Oh, all right. It's been probably moved and seconded. Reverend Thomas, Reverend Wharton, Dr. Wharton, that in the recommendations to the annual conference, through the series of annual conferences, that we approve and endorse the idea, after your study, to find the place that's most appropriate in the Baltimore area that we own, to place the markers of Bishop Wayman and Bishop Payne. All those, you've heard the motion, ready for the question? All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, in so order. Congratulations to you on the job well done. Before you leave, the other part of his report is that we are seeking to find out the ownership of all of these cemeteries, and we're asked all of these churches to check out the ownership. We started last year encouraging you through this committee. There is a manual that's online. Is it not online?
I don't think it's online yet.
Oh, well, we'll put it online. We have it. I don't know. Okay. It will be online. And if it doesn't get up quick enough for you, then call one of them. They have it. It is a questionnaire. It is a policy book that every church that has a cemetery ought to find out whether you really own it or not. That's the first thing. And because you see how easy it is to be sued, amen, you ought to start now, if you had not before, to establish a policy for the cemetery. And that becomes one of your points in your official board and church conferences, to adopt a policy for those churches that have cemeteries. We are right now in the Western North Carolina Conference debating whether we own something that somebody is trying to send us a bill for, because it has not been proven that we own it. You understand what I'm saying? You have an opportunity now to be proactive before something happens. You have an opportunity at your local church where your grandmother is buried to be proactive about what's going to happen to that cemetery. Right? All right. Thank you so much, Gibbon. I'm sorry, go ahead. You had a question right here.
Bishop, since it was put in an article that the church, the ME church, was neglected, will we be sending a statement or press release to say the opposite or say the truth once everything is settled?
I think that's a good idea. I know the legal issues are being referred to our attorney. And the ugly calls that Reverend Burns is getting now because his name is on there. We're going to just pray for him while he gets his number changed. You know, but all of the legal issues, because people are still calling, people are still mad, people are still hurt, which they have every right to be, you know, because somebody's been taking their money and somebody's been doing a number on them in somebody's name. You know, and so I think that's appropriate. Will you see how that can happen?
Yes. This is very quickly, Reverend Dana, Bishop knows this. WBAL did the initial piece on the cemetery that was widespread. Then they came to Cecil County, my house, twice this past summer. They showed up at the church in Elkton twice. So we're hoping through our attorney to get the message communicated out.
And you see why I like good pastors? They allow Ross's husband to live longer. Because I couldn't take that. That would make me nervous. Somebody showing up at the meeting. That you with me. You're younger than I am. All right.
Elected officials have called me several times about this before it got into those hands. So if we had something to give to those elected officials that we work with in our community as well, that would be good.
All right. Well, you see how ugly this thing can get. It's bad press. Yes, sir.
Question came, do we know what remains of Bishop Payne and Bishop Payne actually is?
Bishop, 30 seconds. So just to give you a quick history, Bishop Payne and Bishop Wayman were buried in Laurel Cemetery. In the 1950s, some persons in the department in Baltimore City Hall did some shenanigans and took possession of that property. Because at that time, Laurel Cemetery had fallen to disrepute. And so these gentlemen purchased it, it was finally sold, and a mall was built over. If you look at the timeline, when that was done, the monuments were moved to Mount Zion, and someone connected Bishop Hemingway with the monuments. And we believe that's how our name got connected with Mount Zion. It is believed that their remains is still buried under the mall. Parts of their monuments are in Mount Zion, and parts are in another cemetery on the Eastern Shore.